JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Friday, March 14th, 9 a.m., 9:01 a.m. Happy Pi Day. And tomorrow, I always like to be on the Ides of March. One of my favorite days. I don't know why, but I'll talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at, go from there. S&P futures in the green. Fixed the screens. That's right. It's not red. Well, actually, we've kind of opened flat a couple sessions this week and green. After the CPI data, we were solidly green. And then Thursday and Tuesday, we kind of gave back green and we were just slightly in the red at the open. Today we're back to the green, so we'll see how if this holds. It's the question of the day: is the market going to hold the gains, or are we just going to continue yesterday's? I almost like think it was like almost felt like a controlled sell off. It was such a like a slow, methodical meltdown after about 10:30. It was like, I mean, I, you would think in the midst of the market and the S&P closed at correction territory, uh, it would seem more volatile than that, right? No wild swings, no huge bumps and dips, no crazy gyrations. Outside of 2 o'clock, we had reports that the Russian-Ukraine there was a truce, but that didn't come to fruition. The markets gave back the gains. The SPY broke under 550 for a little bit and bounced and closed at 551.42. So we'll see what happens here today. There's not much into the weekend. We do get the initial read of Michigan consumer confidence number, and that rattled markets last month. So I don't think it's going to be a pretty number to begin with. I don't know how much it will really impact markets unless it's substantially lower than expectations, but that comes out at 10 o'clock. And then we'll just have to see. It's been somewhat of a headline-driven market recently. So, some of the specter of a possible government shutdown seems to be done. I saw reports, or at least you have Polymarket, the capability for folks to bet on events now, right? So one of them was the odds were shifting over 50% for a possible government shutdown. So big headline, like on I don't know what outlet it was on, but they said, oh, now odds on the pie market are showing over a 50% probability of a government shutdown. And then you look and it's by the end of the year. So it says by December 31st, 2025, there will be a government shutdown. So it's funny. It's not like government shutdown this weekend. I mean, obviously the odds went up after some back and forth, and some were saying that it was destined to happen, whatever. But it looks like that won't come to fruition. So we'll see. Hopefully, if the markets find some footing, there's a lot of oversold names. The RSI and the SPY is still under 30. So I think there's an opportunity at least for a bounce. And I keep saying it. Even we can be lower in the coming weeks, but there's going to be bounces along the way. So it's tough if your mindset just one way, and then we have a bounce, and your one way is puts, and the puts get destroyed, right? And then if your mindset is one way and you're in the calls and we bounce and you don't lock the calls in, you're going to get killed on the way down again. So definitely an environment to keep things small, pick and choose your entries and exits if there's a decent risk reward, and that's what I'll continue to look to do. 552 was the lows on Tuesday and Thursday. Broke through that yesterday. 551 and change. So that looks like a key spot. And then 558 on the way up, and then that 563 handle. We really like to get over that before the end of the day today. I mean, we're far away. We're 557 here on the SPY in the pre-market, but you never know. Other things to note: the amount of stocks trading on their 200-day moving average down 35%. Actually, 35% of stocks in the S&P are trading above their 200-day moving average. Watching that for a reversal. And then other things, I love historicals. I always talk about some nice little inputs given on FinTwit. The amount of times a correction turns into a bear market, it's like 25% of the time. N equals 12. So, there's been 48 corrections since World War II, and 12 of them have turned into a 20% bear market. So 25% probability. So I kind of like those odds. And then you look at the S&P performance in 2008. What happens after the S&P closes under correction territory? And historically speaking, 66% of the time it's in the green. A week later, 1 month later, it's only 40%. So again, we might have some gyrations on the way. So we might not be out of the woods for downside. Then you start looking at a year later, 86% of the time the markets are higher. And the only two outliers are 2008 and 2022 in February. So I like those odds, right? If you're a gambling person, 86. If you said you get 86 probability on a roll of a dice, you're probably going to bet on that roll of the dice, right? You're pretty good shot of winning. All right, so that's kind of overall market. The individual names, I talked about Intel yesterday. Great news. I mean, I was talking about a couple weeks ago, and now with the new CEO news. I think that just should be the kickstart it needs. Watching 24. So if it gets over 24, I'll look to add some more strikes. And then I think it trades over 26 in the coming days. So not only that, the possible Spectre, and I'm sure there'll be some, I don't know if Barron's or one of these uh, publication to come out with a piece on Intel, right? A bull case or maybe even some analyst upgrades. So really like that one. So I added those strikes yesterday, outlined on the watch list. BIDU all the way up to 96, finally broke 95.75 for a little bit, and then succumbed to the pressure in the afternoon. Still closed up 2%. Still like this one. I think if it gets over 95.75 today and holds, I think it's over 100 next week. Might look to add some more strikes today. And then also add some VKTX calls. Relative strength, typically when the market's weak, sometime and the market's strong, VKTX is traded down. So to see it hold up yesterday and was solidly green for some periods of the day, noon hour hit highs, pulled back, and it bounced back into the green. So some continuation today. There'll be 3 straight days to the green. Maybe some hype over the weekend as well in regards to its deal that it did to distribution deal. I think that bodes well for the name, and especially considering where it's come from since November. I think there's an opportunity for some upside there. And then other names I'm watching. TKO was off 4% yesterday. No news, no catalyst. Again, it's a name I kind of been watching. Saw it running up at the start of the year. I didn't want to chase. Now I think it's a good opportunity. So you have that deal with Netflix in regards to WWE. What happens if there's some kind of UFC side of the deal? So with Netflix, I just think it's, and take a look at the volume too on the sell-off. So looks like it's churned. If you don't have the chart, I can put it here. I put it in the chart room. I think there's a nice room for maybe even some shorter dated calls for a move at least back to his 50-day moving average there, 153 and change. XYZ is back on the watch list. Haven't traded this since its name change or ticker change, excuse me. This one's been pretty much cut in half to start the year. It had earnings. I didn't think the earnings were too bad. And not only that, the backdrop of crypto. Bitcoin, it is down to 80,000, but it's still substantially higher than when Square started buying it. So like this one as a bounce, I might be back on radar for a trade. ROKU disappointing. I hate to catch falling knives. It looked like it was bottoming on Thursday, back over its 200-day moving average, only to give it all back yesterday. Still like this one for a bounce, but I'll be very careful adding some spec calls. And then Arista's up near 83 here in the pre-market. Had those spec calls, locks them in for some profits. I think this trade's north of 80, 86, 87 into next week. So don't be surprised to add some more strikes there. And then, like I said, on the flip side, it's very hard on risk-reward basis right now with the premiums to play some puts. And, strategy I was saying this week was tough. The 200 puts were like $3 or $4 Monday, Tuesday, and then they were 40 cents, 50 cents, right? So if you had held those, you just get destroyed. Even on swings to the downside, the calls and the puts were red. And then JP Morgan's down 7% this week. The puts, very tough to trade. Even if you did time it, you have to be very nimble. You make like 30%. To me, that doesn't make sense on a risk-reward basis. Visa's down nearly 4%, but I got those puts on Tuesday. If I'd held those puts, I'd be swimming, right? They'd be toast. So maybe I should be looking at some of the other names like the Restoration Hardware's, Ralph Lauren's, some of the other names in the retail sector that have really taken on a chin, but maybe for the next pull. So we'll see how it all plays out this week. Like I said, I don't think we're I put on the watch list, not out of the woods yet. I'm not sitting here putting my bullhorns on, but I think there's going to be opportunities at least for short-term bounces. That's it. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on later. Rock and roll.